In a world where cinema reigns supreme, join us on an epic journey through the silver screen. Welcome to What's New with Stu, a movie review, with your host Dave Stewart, a video podcast where every frame tells a story. Get ready for insights, laughs, and film debates. From blockbusters to hidden gems, we've got it all covered. Lights, camera, action. It's time for What's New with Stu, a movie review. And now your host, David F. Stewart.
I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
It's too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Words of late great Benny Hill. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, all. Welcome to another episode of What's New with Stu, a movie review. I'm your host, Dave Stewart, and in this episode, I'm really excited because I'm going to talk about my favorite movies of all time. And when I say movies, I mean my top movie, but I say movies plural because these two films I kind of combined. But I'm going to discuss both these movies by separate them and talk about the debate about which movie was better, because one's a sequel. And of course, I'm talking about the 1972 classic, The Godfather.
I am honored and grateful that you have invited me on the day of your daughter's wedding. And I hope that their first child be a masculine child.
And The Godfather Part 2, the sequel, 1974.
I'm your older brother, Mike, and I was stepped over.
That's the way Pop wanted it.
It ain't the way I wanted it. I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
And of course, directed by the great Francis Ford Coppola, starring Al Pacino and Marlon Brando and James Caan and Robert Duvall and Diane Keaton, and go on and on and on. The one thing I want to mention about the Godfather films that many people probably don't think about when they watch them is that on the surface they seem to be just simply about the mob, but they're much deeper than that. Even the producers through the years of the film said the film is really about family, and similar to how it inspired even shows like The Sopranos is quite evident. Francis Ford Coppola was able to take Mario Puzo's best-selling novel and turn a good book into something even better. Coppola looked at the Godfather films like this. It's about a king with three sons, and basically it's succession. Who's going to take over for the father when he ultimately dies? And Coppola, very inspired by Shakespeare in a lot of the Godfather films. Ultimately, the films become the story of the rise and fall of Michael Corleone. Now, there are three films. I'm not going to go into the third one. Suffice to say that most people, including myself, feel the third movie is nowhere near as good as the first two. But I would watch it if you want to see what happens to Michael and the rest of the family members as it concludes the story. Again, wonderful films about the mafia. But ultimately, it's about a family and about the rise and fall of Michael Corleone. Well, what I want to discuss in this episode is which is better, because there's been a debate. When The Godfather 2 came out, a lot of people said it was better than the original. It's kind of similar to The Empire Strikes Back, considered being better than Star Wars. I want to debate this idea that The Godfather Part 2, is it better than The Godfather? I'm going to give you my points on the reasons for that argument, the reasons against that argument, and my final summation of what I think is the better film. And again, we're splitting hairs here. You have these films are like this.
Luca Brasi held a gun to his head, and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. That's my family, Kay. It's not me.
The Godfather Part 2 is the only sequel to an Oscar for Best Picture. I'm not saying it's going to matter to a lot of people, but just trying to make a point that's never happened before. Maybe it won't happen again.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart.
You broke my heart.
Let's start with the argument why The Godfather Part 2 is better than The Godfather. Now, I'm not going to go into a history of why you should watch The Godfather and the history of the films. I'm assuming that you've seen them already, and if you haven't, you should watch them.
This is the business we've chosen. I didn't ask who gave the order, because it had nothing to do with business.
The first reason is 2 goes more into the darker realm. Now, this is the same theory with The Empire Strikes Back. I think a lot of times people feel that with certain sequels, the darkness, because sometimes the sequel goes into a different place. The original, they didn't know it was going to become a hit, makes a lot of money, everybody loves it, and now they decide to make a sequel, and now they gave him full reign to do whatever he wanted to, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing. In this case, I think it was a really good thing, as Coppola was able to go in an interesting area. He decides to compare Michael to his father. So what he does with Part 2 that makes it very interesting is we see Vito growing up. He's in Sicily. He comes to America. They show his rise, and they contrast that with Michael, what he's going through.
We're fine.
Problems with his wife. He's having problems with just even keeping himself from becoming a zombie because he's so cold right now.
It was an abortion. An abortion, Michael. Just like our marriage is an abortion. It was an abortion, Michael. It was a son, and I had it killed because this must all end.
He's being investigated by the ethics committee and, the committee that looks at unorganized crime, and he doesn't have the old man's touch, and it's basically this comparison.
Ha ragione io, Coeggio. Lasciati fare a me. I take everything. Io risetto tutte cose. E ho menzogne non ne dico mai all'amici miei.
Ma come fai tu a farci pigliare di meno?
A voi oggi non mi interessa. Ma solo ricordatevi che vi feci un piacere.
It's a much, much darker film. There's no doubt about that. And again, a lot of times people are attracted to this, and they feel that makes it a better film. One of the criticisms of the original Godfather was that Vito, played by Brando, was almost like a grandfather type of figure. They didn't show him doing anything wrong or bad. Bonacera goes to see him and wants those 2 boys that beat, raped his daughter taken care of. He makes it clear that he's going to do that, and in the book he does.
If you'd come to me in friendship, then the scum that ruined your daughter would be suffering this very day. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then he would become my enemies. And then they would fear you.
By the way, the novel, you get to see more of the darker side of Vito Corleone. And I don't mean just the flashbacks to Sicily, which is shown in the second movie. But in the book, there's there's other scenes that kind of show the more brutality of Vito. Coppola, I think, has acknowledged this. I don't think he did it on purpose. I think it's just, the Godfather, in their own sealed world, so to speak, and everybody relates to each other. There's a certain amount of rules that you break, you're going to get punished, you know what I mean? But it's all within that world.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I think The Godfather wasn't meant to be some saint. The kind of man that most people would almost want their grandfather to be. He was just, he was good. Again, within the context of the fact that he was a mob boss, okay? But yes, you don't see the brutality of prostitution. You don't see a lot of the close-up stuff. Now, again, he's on the top of the totem pole too, and that's partly why we're not seeing a lot of the stuff that happens on the streets. But that was a criticism of The Godfather, and now 2 kind of changed that a little bit. Now Michael's in charge. Is the scene where a prostitute is killed on purpose to set up a senator that they want to go along with them, and they figure if they set the senator up with a dead prostitute, that will motivate him to go along with them. And I don't think, you think, gee, Vito would never have authorized that, but Michael does. Without giving anything away, if you haven't seen The Godfather Part 2, Michael has his own brother killed. There's reasons for that, but that's something we don't think Vito would have done, because even in the original Godfather, Vito cannot bring himself to have his son-in-law Carlo killed, even though the evidence is pretty substantial that he probably was responsible for having Sonny killed in the toll booth, and Michael had to take care of that for him. So that is one of the reasons why I think The Godfather 2 is better. Also, that contrasting imagery between Vito and Michael is very, very powerful. And the scenes in Sicily, by the way, are, though they did it in the first film, this is really wonderful. The opening, and then of course to show 1920s America with Vito rising to the top, using all the Sicilian dialect. De Niro was unbelievable. Supposedly Robert De Niro had to learn all that language, and the guy that taught him said he speaks Sicilian better than most people that actually speak it.
Io vado mano sto favore, d'un paesano now. Non fai sto piacere. Mica di chissà, io uomo scordo. E spiacere la mia città in sto vicinanza che sono io. Igi tu sanno dire come io saccio favore.
And of course, De Niro won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 1974, playing young Vito Corleone. He was that good. That's another reason a lot of people think 2 is better than 1. And of course, the final shot of Michael sitting alone in his chair, that's one at a similar closing that was great. I think it just hit people harder.
Your country ain't your blood, you remember that.
I don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way. Well, if you don't feel like that, why don't you just quit college and go to join the army?
I did. I enlisted in the Marine.
Like your father's heart on his birthday. Mikey, he has high hopes for you.
Well, I have my own plans for my future.
Once you go to college, you get stupid. You're really stupid.
He's here, come on.
This is my argument for why The Godfather is better than The Godfather Part 2.
Mike, you don't come to Las Vegas and talk to a man like Mo Green like that!
Fredo, you're my older brother, and I love you. But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again. Ever.
1, I think it's the structure flows better. I think the opening scene grabs you when Bonacera is sitting there. And
I believe in America. America has made my fortune. These 2 boys were brought to trial. The judge sentenced them to 3 years in prison and suspended the sentence. Then I said to my wife, for justice, we must go to Don Corleone.
The Undertaker's telling Don Vito that he needs a favor. And then you see the opening to the wedding. I think it just grabs you. You see all the characters. They're interesting, entertaining. I think the flow of the film is better. It's definitely shorter. Now, not that means shorter, that has to be better. Godfather's 2 hours and 50 minutes. Godfather Part 2 is like 3 hours and 20 minutes. I love both films. The length doesn't bother me, but it's a little shorter, a little tighter. I just think the flow works better. I think the scenes are more interesting. Again, we're talking about, I want to make it clear, we're not knocking The Godfather Part 2. We're just, if you have to put 1 at number 1. At home, you may be distracted more, and I just think 2 has scenes that are a little slower. They're great, they're powerful, but they just, for some reason, I just don't think they work in terms of the structure of the flow of the first movie.
I don't want his mother to see him this way. Look how they massacred my boy.
The other reason I think The Godfather's better than 2, James Caan is Sonny Corleone.
What are you gonna do? Nice college boy, huh? Didn't want to get mixed up in the family business? Huh? Now you want to gun down a police captain, why? Because he slapped you in the face a little bit? Huh? What do you think, this is the army where you shoot him a mile away? You gotta get up close like this, and bada bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit. Come here. Mwah!
Hey, listen, I want somebody good, and I mean very good, to plant that gun. I don't want my brother coming out of that toilet with just his dick in his hands, all right? The gun will be there.
Now, he makes a guest appearance at the end of 2, and it's great to see him in that few minutes at the end of the movie.
What's the matter?
Come on, knock it off. Come on, hey, come on.
Sonny, punk. Sonny, sit. No, go on, sit down.
Mommy, Daddy's fighting again.
Or she'll call it a tree.
I would argue that if you surveyed most people that are Godfather fans, who is their most popular character that they love the most, they're going to probably say Vito, maybe number 1, but a very close second, if not number 1, is Sonny Corleone. I mean, that's the way I would rate it. I just love Santino Corleone, and most people do. And I think him missing from the second movie hurts a little bit. You have a lot of the other characters from the first movie, but he was a very powerful presence.
My sister again, I'll kill you.
And now finally, maybe the main reason of why The Godfather is better than 2, and that, of course, is pretty obvious, I think, and that's Marlon Brando as Don Vito Corleone.
I never wanted this for you. I worked my whole life. I don't apologize to take care of my family. And I refused to be a fool. Dancing on the string held by all those big shots. I don't apologize, that's my life, but I thought that when it was your time that you would be the one to hold the strings.
Coppola wanted Brando to appear in the flashback sequence that James Caan as Sonny would appear at the end of 2. But Brando, who was notorious of having problems, and that's one of the reasons why the producers of the first movie didn't even want him to play the role, and Coppola had to talk him into it, and they saw his screen test, and they agreed that Brando was great, and of course he won the Oscar, and then he wins the Oscar, and he refuses to accept it, and he sends a woman pretending, not even a real Indian, pretending to be an Indian, who refused the Oscar in protest of the way the Indians are being treated in this country. We find out later she's an actress. I love Brando the actor, but he's definitely a little unusual. If you've ever seen interviews with him with Dick Cavett and others, he was one of a kind. He wanted too much money for 2, or it was just, so Coppola realized it wasn't going to work. Well, the truth is, it's okay, because the flashbacks with De Niro, though he doesn't really look like Brando, he is channeling the essence of Don Vito, and De Niro's unbelievable. And plus, his character kind of haunts the film, even when they say Pop, or, whenever they say Pop in the movie, whether it's Fredo or Michael, you feel the presence of Don Vito in the film. So we don't really need to see him at the end. We hear him come in and they yell, surprise for happy birthday. We don't see him, and maybe it's better that we don't. But you're still talking about a huge reason why the Godfather film was so successful. His character is so iconic. Everybody has spoofed that, whether it's an animated cartoon or another movie. Brando even played a movie called The Freshman with Matthew Broderick, where Brando was playing a guy who was the inspiration for Don Vito, and he looks like Don Vito in the film. He's not Don Vito, but he talks and sounds. So it's almost like Brando playing Vito in a comedy, and you would think, why would they do it? Well, actually, it works. He's very good in The Freshman. That's how iconic his character is. Saying The Godfather 2 is better than The Godfather, I can't do that. I just can't. I am going to go along with the idea that The Godfather is the greatest movie, not only of the 2, but of all time.
Don Corleone.
Now, there are some films where the sequels are actually better than the original, and I will talk about that in another episode. But in this case, I can't say that. But again, you're talking about this close. And that's why when I rank my greatest films of all time, or my favorite films, I say The Godfather, and then right below that, The Godfather Part 2. And the immortal words of the late, great Benny Hill. Good night, viewers. Good night, all. We'll see you next time, and we'll see you at the movies.